So, as part of this session, we are going to see question and answers in Angular forms. I have around 12 question and answers. Let us see that. So, the first question is what are forms and why we need them? Okay. Forms, as you all know, it is the common way to send some data. It is for getting some data from the user. So for all the data entries, like you want to get the username, password, or you want to get the information, user information. For all this, we need forms. Maybe they add an employee, add a student, need to add some details, get some details from the user. We use forms. That is the way of getting data from the user. Okay. So as you see that. Handling user input with forms is the cornerstone of many common applications, and it enables user to log in or update a profile or provide sensitive information, and to perform many other data entry tasks we need forms. Now let us see how forms are handled in Angular. Okay, before jumping into that, I just want to show you the application which I will be using for explaining these forms. Okay, I already have a application done using I have done the same application for template forms and reactive model forms also. Okay, so in this question and answers, I will be explaining you how I created the template model form and reactive model form. Okay, and we'll be seeing all the questions involved in that. Okay, so this is the basically the form, and if you want to see the application, this is the application which I have, where the template form and the types of forms are template forms and reactive forms. Those two are handled as different components, login component and reactive. This is template login form and this is reactive login form. So let me, as we proceed, I will explain you how to create the reactive login form and template login form. So let's go back to the question. So the question is, what are the different types of forms in Angular? There are two types of form, the reactive forms and template driven forms. Reactive forms, if you see, they are more scalable and it is capable to handle more complex operations. And this type of forms we create in the component class. Okay, and it can be more testable. Template driven forms, as the name implies, it is from the template, from the view. Okay, in this case, you can go for this if you want to develop a simple form, and it is not very scalable and it is very difficult to test as well. So reactive forms are more preferred. Okay, understand? So let me go to reactive forms first. How to develop a reactive forms? What is reactive forms? In case of reactive forms, if you take any forms, we have a form group and form controls. Inside form groups, we have form controls for each of the input elements. Okay, maybe let me explain you in code. Okay, and reactive forms we develop it from the class. As I told you before, reactive forms, the form model is developed from the class and we sync the same with the template. So it is created from the class and we sync it with the template. Let us see how to create reactive forms before I try to explain you how to implement this. Okay, so let us move to a reactive component. So reactive component, as I told you, okay, the form model is being developed from the component class. You can see here we are developing a form group. Inside that I'm saying I need form control, two form controls for username and password. I'm having a form group, new form group. This form group you can see it, it is from Angular forms. Okay, and inside form group, the form group is like a parent. So I am saying inside the form group, I need two controls, form controls. This is username and password. Okay, and here the first argument to form control is what should be the value, default value. Here I say it should start with null, and I'm saying this username should have validators of required. This is a required control. And for a password, I'm saying I need two validation. One is required, and the another is the password should be min length of 4. Okay, these two I've added to the form group. This is about the thing which I need to create in the component class. Okay, so now I have created the form groups. The form model has been created. Now I have to sync the same with the HTML. The corresponding HTML is reactive login component.html. In this, I have to sync what form group I'm created there and form controls I've created there. So for syncing, what I say to the form, I say you use this form group. For that, I'm saying property binding of form group, and I'm saying login form. This is the same name with which the form group is created. Okay, so I'm mentioning that name here. Okay, so I'm saying you use the form group which is created in login form. So through property binding, I'm given this value. So I've created a form group already in login form. I'm asking the form to use that form group. And the control, we have two controls here, right? Username and password. For both the controls, I'm saying you use the form control in the name of username, form control name, password. So these two names should match what is provided in the component.ts. So you can see here, right? The username, password. So I'm saying you use the form control name in this name. Inside the form group, you use the form control name of username. So this username I already created, right? Inside form group. I'm asking it to use that form control name. Similarly, I'm for password, I'm telling it to use form control name password. Okay. And for validation error messages, you have to add a span element. From the login form dot get, I'm getting the username. Login form is a form group, right? From that, I'm getting this form control, and in that, I'm testing whether it is valid. If it is valid, it will be true, else it will be false. Similarly, I'm testing whether it is touched. Only if it is touched, I want to test this. Okay. If it is false, you will get this error message. Okay. Similarly, for password, I want to show two different messages. One for min length, minimum length, and password is required. Password is required in the same way. Login password form dot get password dot valid. Okay. From that, I'm trying to get the form control, and from that, I'm testing for valid. Similarly, here I'm testing the min length error should not be there. For that, I'm putting this. Okay, min length error should not be there, and when password should be touched. Show this message. If the min length error you, is present, then you show this error. Okay, and I disable this button if the login form, that is a form group, is not valid. Okay, by means of this property binding. If it is not valid, the disable will be true. Okay, so hope this is clear. And for reactive login model to work, you also need to add this imports reactive forms module, which is from Angular forms. Okay, so right now we have added it because we have added the route for that. We have added the route. So let us check whether it is working. If you log out, and the username password, because I'm using a node server, so I have hard coded the username password. It is abc pass. If I give it as null, you can see that it is disabled and you can see the error message here. Likewise, if password is less than 4 letters, you will get this message, and if it is none, you will see this message, and both are not valid, you will see that disabled. If I give the correct username and password, it will be able to enter. So this is about reactive forms. So in this, we create the the form model in the component class and sync it with the template. I say the input button of username, you use this form control. Similarly, the input of password to use this form control. Since similarly the form group to use the form group what I have created. Okay. So in the case of reactive forms, each form element in the view is directly linked to form model. Okay, since we have synced it. So the updates from the view to the model and model to view are synchronous. So understand, reactive forms are synchronous and are not dependent on the UI rendered. And the module you need to import is reactive forms module. Okay. So the any input event, right, when it happens in the view, it is directly linked to the form control instance. When any event happens in the username, that is directly updated in the form control instance because we have already synced there the username form control instance name as username. You can see that here, right? You can see it here. Form control name as username or password, whatever. Since it is directly linked, it is synchronous, and we are able to directly take the value from that input event. Okay. Now let us see in the case of, so the thing you have to understand in this case is the updates are synchronous and the view is directly linked to the form model. But when you go for template forms, this is not the case. Okay, we create the form model, we ask Angular to create the form model. Okay, we don't create the form model, we ask Angular to create the form model, and uh, and we use that form model in the component class. Okay, you understand? So let us see a template form model. So for showing the template form model, let me change this login as template login. I think it is login component. Okay, it is login component. You have to use. So now I should be able to see a template form instead of a. So I'm able to see a template form. So I also want to illustrate. So let me go to the login component now. This is the login component, template login component. So Angular will create a ngForm directive for all the forms. If you have imported forms module, we also imported forms module, which is required for template form. Okay. Once you have imported this for all the forms, Angular will be creating a ngForm. Okay. ngForm, it is a directive which will be created. And the ngForm only will be creating the form model. This directive will only be responsible for creating the form group what we created in the component class, right? So this directive will be responsible for creating form group, and this form group we will be using for validating or getting the values and all those. So here I will take the ngForm which got created for this template by using this template reference. Okay. So I am saying asking Angular what you created, the ngForm you created, please provide it in this variable. Okay. And For creating a form control inside the form group, okay, you have to use ngModel. Okay, you have to use ngModel, and name is also essential because it will the ngModel, when you have a ngModel inside a form, Angular will create a form control. The ngModel is responsible for creating the form control, and name is also mandatory. If you don't give a name, you will get error, because as you see in reactive login ts, right, you will be able to see this. So there is a name, right, inside new form group. There is a name given for this form control. For creating this, Angular needs a name for ngModel for creating the form control. Okay, so two things are mandatory when you have a ngModel inside a form. You should also have a name so that it can create, ngModel can create a form control in this name. Okay, and I want the form control it created, right? The ngModel whatever it created, I want to access it. I'm using the same template reference as we use for form ngForm. I'm retrieving it from name. I'm asking it to the ngModel you created, please place it in name. So here the ngModel which you have inside the form is responsible for creating the form control. Only through the directive you can access the form model, the form control in this case. Okay. So from that name, I'm able to use the valid as we did it for reactive forms, right? There we had it in the class, so we did login form dot get. Here we already have it in name, so we directly use name dot valid, name dot touched, and all those. For adding validations here, you have to put required. Okay, required here, and you have to put the validation for the error messages. Similarly, for password for min length 4, you have to add min length 4 and required, and for showing the error message, similarly you have to do. And here also we get the ngModel in the template reference variable of pass, and we use the pass for adding the validations. Okay, similarly what we did for reactive forms, right? And here also using the f, I test for validity. Okay. So this f will have the form group. Okay, so when we submit, I'm sending this form group to the class file loginform.ts, and from that I can retrieve the username and password. Okay, you can see it here. Username and password can be retrieved from the uh, form group. So in this case, you need to understand one thing very clearly. Here we don't create the form model ourselves. We rely on Angular for creating the directive ngForm, which will internally create form group, and we rely on directive ngModel for creating the form control, and only through the directive we are able to retrieve the form model here in this case. Okay, so hope you understood. So in this case, the form element is linked to a directive that is responsible for creating the form model. So you can understand ngForm for creating form group, and form model ngModel for creating form control. Okay, so we depend on a directive for creating the form model, and here it is asynchronous, it is not synchronous, as we see in the case of reactive forms, where direct updation happens from because we create that form model, direct updation happens. Okay, we need not do it asynchronously, but in this case it is asynchronous, and the module we need for template models is called as forms module. What is ngForm? We already explained, right? ngForm is nothing but a directive which is responsible for creating the form group. Okay. So here the ngForm will be created for all the forms. Okay. Wherever you have in the imports you have form form modules, right? That's what I'm thinking. So it is. So you can see it here. Wherever you have forms module imported and you have a form, HTML form, this ngForm will be created by Angular. Okay, understand? And this directive is responsible for creating the form group. Okay, and this form group can be you can retrieve this form group which is created by Angular using template reference. Okay, so this is a directive and it creates a top level form group instance. Okay, so this form group as you know can be used for validation, all those. Okay, this is very important to understand. It is a directive. You don't need this in case of reactive forms because we create the form group ourselves. We don't rely on Angular for creating ngForms. Okay, we don't rely on ngForms created by Angular. ngForm created for all forms? Yes, it is created for all forms provided you have imported forms module. Okay. Is it possible to create a form without ngForm? Yes, it is possible to create a form without ngForm when you provide this ngNoForm in your form. Okay, maybe in reactive we don't need this, right? You can just simply specify this here in that HTML. You can just specify ngNoForm. I don't need the, I'm telling Angular don't create the form. Okay, because I have already created the form myself. Okay, so this can also be a good interview question. Okay, what does ngModel do in template forms? ngModel in template form is a directive which is responsible for creating form control. And also you have to understand name is very essential because it will create the name form control in this key. You saw that right in reactive forms we put new form group and inside username, and in that username as key we created a new form control. So ngModel creates the form control instance for to manage the form template form control. Okay, so just understand this. What is the importance of ngModel in template forms? So I will show you that in reactive forms. If you go, you can see this, right? We created the new form control in this name. So for this reason only name is very essential in ngModel. You have to give a name so that it will create a form control in that name. Okay, we move to the next question. So as I told you, in this name only the form control instance will be created by ngModel. So name is very essential. If you don't give a name in your input, it will throw a error. Okay, okay, hope this is clear. I can also show you that error to you if I delete this name, right? In maybe we were seeing template forms, right? Let me go to this template forms. Let me delete this name for username. So let me see now what happens. So you are able to see error here. Name must be set or the control must be standalone in ngModel options. So ngModel is used within a form tag. Name attribute must be set. Understand this. Okay. what is a template reference variable and how do you use it. So as we used it like this, right? We used it for getting the access of the ngForm and ngModel, right? So whenever you want to use a template reference, you have to put a hash and any name. In that name, the model which is available in the DOM element will be available. You can directly use it. Okay. So for using a template reference, just put a hash and any name. In that name, you can get hold of the model created by Angular. In this case, the ngForm, the Angular created for us, right? You can reference it. Likewise, in this case, in this name, you can get hold of the ngModel created by Angular. ngModel instance, okay, ngForm instance similarly. So you can see this. So template reference way is capturing a reference to a specific element, component or a directive. So in our case, we were accessing a specific directive. So that we can use it for here. We used it for doing validations in the same template. Hope this is clear. What is the difference between reactive and template forms? When we should go for both. Template, as we saw, I just made a small issue here. It is reactive template. This is, as you know, right? This is synchronous. This is maybe I confuse certain things. I'll just copy it. This is synchronous, and as we know, right? Template is asynchronous because we rely on a directive to create the model, right? And reactive, we directly create and sync it with the view. So it is synchronous. And in the case of reactive, it is more control. And in case of template, it is less control. Okay. And less control. And here we use ngModel syntax for two-way data binding. Here, no data binding because all the data we enter is we directly enter it in the form model. Okay, no need of data binding, but here two-way data binding is needed because we need to give that data to the class. So this is suitable for simple scenarios. The reactive also handles complex scenarios. It is easy to use template, but this is more flexible, but you need practice to use it. This is not template is not scalable, reactive is scalable, and reactive is easily testable, and template is not easily testable. Okay, sorry for the issues I've done. Maybe I confused. I've put in some things here and there. Sorry for this. So this is the differences. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Hope you understood this. So when to use reactive template? Reactive, you can use it for complex and large things, and for a template you can use for small, where you think that it will not expand or it will not scale. You can use template. Okay, and if you want testing mandatorily, you go for reactive. If you are not very sure about testing in your application, you can go for template. Okay. So this is about the question and answers for forms.